Hi, my name is Carmen, and I am an early childhood special education teacher, a life and ADHD coach, and I'm the host of this podcast, Authentically ADHD. I created this podcast to help anyone wondering if they have ADHD, people who have been diagnosed for a while and want some more support and community. I'm here to bring you the latest research on ADHD and neurodiversities while we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of ADHD. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hey there, my friend, and welcome back to the podcast. How are you? I am in the midst of going back to teacher life. How about you? It's been a little rocky for me, but I've built in some pretty great supports. Today's topic is a stigma breaking kind of topic because I just hear way too much of everyone has little ADHD or it's just ADHD. And honestly, if I'm being authentic, it makes me feel angry when people say things like this, especially because I grew up undiagnosed, untreated, and misunderstood. When I hear the phrase, "it's just ADHD," this fact comes to my mind. People with ADHD are 5 times more likely to attempt suicide than neurotypical people. So, you can't put those two things together and make it just ADHD, because it's not. ADHD is a complex neurodevelopmental disorder that doctors and researchers are still learning about. It has changed immensely in the past few decades, a bunch of times in the DSM-5. We have it our whole lives, and it affects every single part of our lives. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects mostly our frontal lobe, although it does affect other parts of the brain. This is the most prominent, though, the frontal lobe. That's where all the executive functions live and work. These executive functions help someone literally function in life. It includes self-regulation, attention, organization, planning, prioritizing, time management, cognitive flexibility, emotional regulation, impulsivity, self-motivation, self-reflection, working memory, and distraction. When you actually sit down and think about it, there is no part of our lives that ADHD doesn't affect. And then we carry shame because we feel we don't live up to our quote-unquote potential. And these deficit executive functions only add to the feeling of shame and having a low self-worth. One time, a therapist told me that I wasn't dumb or bad at life, that I had metaphorically been pushing a cube up a hill while everyone else in life had a sphere, like a ball. Basically, people who have ADHD try 5 to 10 times harder to meet society's standards, which we usually don't end up meeting. There are different opinions on how many aspects or areas of life, there are. Some go up to 12 areas of life, some broaden it down to 3. What we're going to do today is go through 5 areas of life and how ADHD can impact each part of our lives. Now, usually my episodes have tips and scaffolding and supports at the end. Now, I will be mentioning a few throughout the episode, but I won't be ending with scaffolding or strategies for the ADHDer because this episode is about why it's hard and to help stop the stigma of it's just ADHD, because the 5 areas that we're going to dive into are the 5 areas that I believe are 5 areas that are main to our lives. And they are 1, relationships, 2, work and finance, 3, life's routine responsibilities, 4, health and wellness, and 5, leisure and relaxation. So first, ADHD not only affects our relationships with our others, but it can also negatively impact how we relate to ourselves. We usually have low self-esteem and low self-worth, and this makes it difficult to even build and sustain healthy relationships with others before ADHD even comes into the picture. Basically, connection is a human need. Here's the thing, it is. But rejection is oftentimes what makes the ADHDer fearful of connection. As kids, we are rejected at a higher rate and by our peers and by adults, and given more negative feedback than positive. We have deficits in working memory and self-reflection, and some people can interpret those behaviors as not caring or being flaky or a bad friend. ADHDers will even create tension in order to create a fight, and we don't even realize it, but it's because fighting ups the low dopamine in our brains. So especially when the person who has ADHD is unaware of all of this, we can end up in toxic relationships or relationships that are great, but we end up messing them up, or we isolate. None of these options are healthy or safe. No wonder ADHDers feel lonely and misunderstood. While the world goes off into cliques and groups, we don't feel like we belong anywhere. We drive away safe people with our oversharing nature or impulsive statements. This again also worsens our relationship with ourselves. We feel embarrassment and shame, and we aren't very nice to ourselves. And it's kind of hard to create and maintain healthy relationships with other people when you don't even really like yourself. Next up is work or career and finance. This starts in school because in order to get jobs, we need an education. Most people with ADHD struggle to pay attention and do tasks, complete them, like doing and turning in homework, remembering the homework. This all leads to bad grades and possibly sometimes not entering into higher education. And even when we do, it's incredibly hard for us to get through. For school and careers, you need organization, regulated attention. You need organization and prioritization and self-motivation and time management and emotional regulation. People with ADHD struggle because we have deficits in impulse control and self-regulation, so we tend to make the same mistakes over and over again, making it difficult for us to finish school, get a job, and then manage the finances that come along with life. People who have ADHD are usually creative, innovative, and out-of-the-box thinkers, so they are great employees to have, but because of our lack of organization, prioritization, time management skills, and sucky memory, our other strengths seem to be overshadowed by our downfalls, because the downfalls are more important to most jobs. A great idea isn't anything until, if it's not executed, and we struggle with all the responsibilities that come with being an adult. The finances are just one part of it. We have to figure out how to manage paying for a car, a house, insurance for both of those and yourself, and then add in all the other bills, all due at different times. And meanwhile, people with ADHD are chronic under-earners. So a lot of times, paired with impulsivity, we spend more money than we have. So that creates a whole nother big old pot of problems. Then there are the more daily, weekly, yearly kind of routine responsibilities of life that we need to learn to do and remember to do, like yard care, washing machines, dishwashers, being responsible for keeping a house clean, for maintaining the upkeep of the house and items in the house that break, wear down, and can cause fires or floods. And then add in the impulsive behaviors that ADHDers have. Research shows that we drive at a higher rate of speed. We get in more accidents and are at fault in more of those accidents. We forget to renew licenses and plates, or forget about air duct cleaning and oil changes. The list could go on for days, but this all also costs extra money. Even just a simple speeding ticket that you forget to pay the fee of, all of a sudden you're in you're in court because they've brought you to court. I'll give you an example from my real life. Forget to pay the Target card off, and they served me with papers, and I had to go into court to pay off the card because I forgot about it. Not because I didn't want to pay it. I literally forgot it. It's like even the most simple things, like remembering to shut lights off or blow candles out. It can be simple, like an up in the electricity bill, but the consequences can also be costly, like a fire. So now we move to the fourth area, which is health and wellness. ADHDers don't have a lot of motivation to stay healthy necessarily. We hate making appointments and usually forget about yearly eye and dental visits, which can add up in cost if you go and now have to pay for cavities or root canals because you haven't gone for so long. We have to pay for the treatment of our ADHD, whether that's therapy, medication, visits with a prescriber, etc. We don't have a ton of motivation to work out either. Even though movement is one of the top natural treatments for ADHD, we find it boring and repetitive. And although we do feel better afterwards, a lot of people with ADHD often avoid the working out kind of part of life. We also have sensitivities with foods. We have specific preferences. We could just be downright picky with what we eat. We are also at a higher rate of struggling with other mental conditions, such as ODD, OCD, anxiety, depression, dyslexia, and others. We are at a higher rate of forming substance use disorder, especially if your ADHD wasn't treated before age 12. We forget to do things that are good for us, which, when built up, can cause terrible outcomes. Job loss and change are at a higher rate for us, and so is just completely dropping out of high school or college. And none of that is good for our mental health or our physical health. We don't keep up with doctor's appointments. We don't keep up with connection. It just isn't healthy. The fifth and final area we're going to look at is rest and fun, or leisure. ADHDers, we have a hard time resting because we grow up thinking that productivity equals worth. And whether you feel like you think you have hyperactivity or not, you do in some way. Being able to relax, not being able to relax or sleep is an indicator of that. People who present hyperactive or combination may feel too wound up, or we may have racing thoughts, or we just feel too distracted for rest. Some of us do not like resting because it seems boring and we have a fear of missing out. It's difficult to make friends and relax with them and have fun. So ADHDers find it hard to do that. We also find it really hard to retain hobbies as well. We mostly get kind of just hyper-fixated on one thing and lose interest, and then move on to the next thing that catches our attention. We often waste money and supplies, and sometimes invest the hobby even like into a business idea. Bedtime procrastination and insomnia can keep us up late, leading to poor sleep and worsened symptoms. Honestly, I could have written so much about each of these areas, but I kept it to a minimum for sake of time. But I do hope that this episode helped you to see, or at least open your eyes to why the phrase "it's just ADHD" or "everyone has a little ADHD," that they're problematic, because ADHD is a serious disorder. I have an episode called "The Dangers of ADHD," and that can also point you in some directions that can show you that ADHD is serious. It's even considered a disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I hope you learned why ADHD is a big deal, so we can start breaking this stigma together. That's all I have for now. Stay authentic, my friends, and we will talk soon. Speaking of extra supports, I just wanted to tell you all that I've updated my Patreon page to include all of the resources that I've really ever made to be held in one place. just head to my show notes. The VIP members do get a little extra, but you can also purchase like my brand new Ultimate ADHD Journal and Planner, which I've been using for the past year that has worked. Nothing is priced over $10, and everything is at least 50 to 100 pages that you can download and print. You can get it to bind it and send it to you, or you can just read it off your screen and use notebook paper. So if you want or need any type of that kind of extra support, just head to my show notes and click the Patreon link to join. I hope to see you in there.